Well, welcome to our Good Leadership Virtual Breakfast with your host, Paul Botts, and our special guest today, Brian Cornell, the CEO of Target Corporation. Looking forward to a morning of goodness with you. My name is Kevin Sensenig, and it's my honor to serve as your co-host today. I'm pleased to serve as the Chief Learning Officer with Good Leadership and to also lead Interaction Dynamics Group in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. We are the Mid-Atlantic partner for Good Leadership and are pleased to be helping to spread goodness through good leaders. Please know we will end our broadcast about 5 minutes before the hour, and so that should give you enough time to transition to your next call or event or meeting, and also allow you to stay with us until the end of our broadcast today. As you will see, good leadership is about connecting and involving, engaging with those we lead, and we're going to practice that throughout our session today. And so please be ready, if you would, to participate in the various polls that we may offer, as well as if you have questions, please go ahead and add that into the question box. We'll try our best to answer as many of those as possible. All right, well, as we get moving, one of the things we have to think about and consider is what is good leadership? And so as we started today, we're going to share a short video on that topic, what is good leadership, to kind of set the tone for our conversation today.
Most people agree the difference between surviving and thriving in business today is good leadership. But what exactly is good leadership? Good leadership is the art and science of people working together to create great results. You see it when leaders with good character multiply their impact with proven success habits. Great results happen when people work together and create a positive impact on their customers, colleagues, and their communities. Good Leadership is also a game-changing consulting firm headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Unlike other firms who coach individuals, Good Leadership coaches teams to exceed their goals, both personally and professionally. The firm's mission is to spread the idea goodness pays. What's goodness? Goodness in business is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. Good leadership coaches accelerate alignment in teams during disruptive changes in the business, and they bring out the goodness in people with a proven process called the Goodness Pays Leadership System. It's worth your time to learn more because leading with goodness is confirmed by research to produce better business results. The secret is here in this exceptional book, How Goodness Pays. So if you want to explore new ways to produce better results faster, visit goodleadership.com, watch for a goodness dinner near you, or get tickets to a Good Leadership Breakfast series. It's an exciting workshop held only in Minneapolis 8 times a year.
It's now my privilege to introduce Paul Botts, the CEO and President of Good Leadership. And he's going to be walking us through our virtual breakfast experience this morning and sharing his thoughts on goodness and introducing Brian as well. So welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the help. This is obviously a technical marvel to make this whole thing work. The mission of the Good Leadership Breakfast is to spread goodness because we have proven that goodness pays. Our point of view is that good leadership is the art and science of people working together to create consistently great results. The context for today, I think, is an important one. Earlier this week, I was reading that the American Psychological Association has been tracking the mental health and welfare of employees in America since the 1920s. And what they said this week is that the morale and the resilience of employees is at an all-time low since they've been tracking it. There are a lot of factors. As leaders, we understand how much harder it is to keep our energy up and fresh and positive during the darkness of winter and the isolation that's accompanied by that these days. The endless confusion over what we hear about quarantine and things like that is really, really important. And you know, that we were joking earlier about homeschooling and things like that, about just how in some of us we're kind of at the end of our rope with that concept. And even in the simplest of things, the tension over family and holidays, who can come, who can't, what do we have to do? I know in my own family, we're going to start a quarantine next week so that we can have Christmas with our grandchildren. And it's stressful. Even last month at the Good Leadership Breakfast, we surveyed the people who were attending, and what they told us was, we asked this question: to what extent are you worried about the resilience of your team this winter? And 38% said very concerned, 55 said somewhat concerned. So that's 93% are paying attention enough to know that we're concerned about that. So most of you know that we coach leaders and executive teams on how to thrive with goodness as a strategy. And goodness is when people thrive together. Here's a model that we've been sharing with people, and we would hope that you might learn something here. What we're learning in our roles as coaches for the talent is that we have two responsibilities. We have team communication, to communicate across the team and coach across the team, and we have individual obligation for coaching. And the most important thing about team communication to understand is that these days, people expect realism before positivity. If we're too positive, it seems Pollyannic and almost insignificant. What we need to do is to connect with people about acknowledging the real challenges, acknowledging how difficult it is to keep your energy up when you're working from home in the darkness, acknowledging that we're getting tired of some of these things. But then positivity allows us to, feel like we're successful. We're understanding what kind of wins we can celebrate. The resilience doesn't rise, though, with team communication. It rises when we coach individuals one-on-one, because we all have different contexts. Everyone's life is different. And particularly, it's really important these days to remember that people will endure an immense amount of struggle if they believe they're developing themselves for the person they want to be when they grow up. And that's the aspirational part. So encouraging aspirational thinking, help people understand how the struggles we're going through now help them be there. And if we get the team and the individuals both aligned on the biggest possibilities, that's when we have the positivity that's required for us to have successful organizations built on goodness. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share that. And now I'd like to poll and find out what's on your mind. We have, well over 100 people online today, so this should be a really robust poll. Kevin, let's ask about how people's coaching has shifted during the pandemic. I'll send it to you.
We'll share those results. And it looks like we have a nice blend here, Paul, of those coaching both individuals, teams, and a mix.
Yes, I think that that's terrific. It shows that we have an audience of good leaders who are living up to their obligation to really be more active as coaches these days. I think that's incredibly important. I know those of us who get coaching from time to time, it's really important that we have a coach that's both in touch with who we want to be and and the realism of the moment. So here's where I remind you what the definition of goodness again. Goodness is when people thrive together in a culture of encouragement, accountability, and positive teamwork. And we've been asking this particular question intermittently through the pandemic. And I'm curious to find out, this question is probing for encouragement and positivity. Does your direct supervisor have that or not? Go ahead, Kevin.
Overwhelmingly, yes. People do believe that their supervisors are leading with encouragement and positive, which is encouraging here during this time.
Yes, and that's a big shift from earlier times when we did this research in the early part of the pandemic. So congratulations, keep up the good work. Never before has encouragement and positivity been so important as we've been along this journey here. This is where I remind you that we have materials that can help in these situations. All you have to do is send an email to info@goodleadership. We'll send you a toolkit that we've been using with our coaching. There's several discussion tools and models here to help you think about how you plan for and what conversation you can have in those coaching conversations. So info@goodleadership.com. So there's another thing we need to state that's obvious here. There have been a lot of powerful images that have come through the media lately in terms of the pandemic and also the racial injustice movement that's going on. And this is one that's stuck in my mind. What this is a picture that was taken in Texas from a webcam, from the air, an aerial photograph. What each one of these cars represents is someone whose family is hungry. There were well over 10,000 cars that were waiting to get food in this particular community in Texas. And so a huge part of the goodness movement is living generously and caring about the welfare of other people. One of the things we're really proud about with the Good Leadership Breakfast over the last 11 years, we've had a partnership with Mark Bergman. Mark invented the handy paint pail, the red bucket there. In the hardware store, that's what that's called. Around here, we call it the bucket of goodwill. And we've used that as an innovative fundraising technique that's had a little bit of a lottery game attached to it. We can't do the lottery game over the internet like we're doing now. But since we started using that technique 11 years ago, we've raised over $320,000 for lots of charities. And we chose today to support Feeding America. Because one of the things that seems completely unjust in all of this is that people, not only if they're worried about their welfare, but if they're hungry, how in the world can they think about goodness? So this is where I ask you to be generous. You can go to goodleadership.com/BOGW. That stands for Bucket of Goodwill. Mark has made the first donation, which is a $1,500 lead gift. Good Leadership will be right behind there. And we raised several $1,000s in November for the Salvation Army. We're expecting to exceed that today. So thank you very much. It's very important that we give and give and give this time of year. So thank you. Thanks for your help on that, Kevin. Thank you, Mark. The thank yous also extend to all the sponsors who patiently hung in there with us this year. It has been an amazing journey. We did one breakfast in February live in a ballroom that was full of people who were excited about the networking and the energy that we produce at the Good Leadership Breakfast. And since then, we have been producing this event virtually. We started out with a one camera show on an iPhone, and then we ended up with one meeting that we did in August with Kevin Warren as a speaker, focused on young leaders. And now we're ending the year with Brian Cornell, who's joining us virtually. So I'm grateful that these sponsors have been along for the journey. Our presenting sponsor, Twin Cities Orthopedics, and then the sponsors here. I'm particularly calling out Lockton today. They have supported us in terms of research. We have a research summary we'll be sending you if you wish after the meeting. But we have two sponsors who are here live and in person. The first one I want to introduce you to is Shadi Alomar, who is the CEO of the Wealth Management Group of Old National Bank. And I'm so grateful that Shadi and his organization has stayed with us, because they were one of the first ones to say yes. They wanted to sponsor the May breakfast where Brian Cornell was going to be live in the ballroom at Golden Valley Country Club. Shadi, welcome, and please, would you tell us why you sponsor?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, this is Shadi Alomar, and it is good to be back with you, although virtually, right? I remember attending the first Good Leadership Breakfast 11 years ago, and so far, what a great message it's been. At Old National Bank, we believe in goodness, and we believe in supporting our communities. We were just recognized in an article as the bank punching above its weight. Let me be clear. During this pandemic, we were not in a race against competitors. We had a relentless focus on you and on the community. This was achieved by the tremendous work our team members accomplished during this tough year to serve local families and businesses, to serve you. Old National Bank, yes, we're old, as in we've been in business for 186 years, but we're also new. We remain new in how we adapt, pivot, and adjust to help you achieve your financial goals. It also means investing in our communities. It means empowering our team members to do the same. You are probably familiar with our banking centers, but we are also your partner in commercial banking, private banking, investments, mortgages, and other financial services. We believe in good leadership, and that's one of the reasons we've been recognized as a world's most ethical company for 9 consecutive years. From all of us at Old National, we're by your side, so keep radiating goodness.
Thank you, Shadi. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to partnering with you on this into the future. Thank you. So our next sponsor is the CEO of Navigate Forward, Ann Sample. We're, once again, thank you very much for hanging in there with us. We expected to be there in May, and now here we are in December. So Ann, please tell us, why do you sponsor and how does it work for you?
Good morning, Paul.
Morning.
I'm Ann Sample, the CEO at Navigate Forward, and we provide customized support to executives who are in job transition, planning career change, or seeking board service. We help senior leaders find their passion, their path, and their place in the business community. And we're so excited about sponsoring the Good Leadership Breakfast. We're excited for lots of reasons. Navigate Forward's been a partner with Good Leadership and with Target for many years. Brian and I both worked at Pepsi, and he's got an incredible reputation as a leader, and we're really excited to hear from him. At Navigate Forward, we also really believe in the importance of networking. And while today's event is virtual, I know we will be back together in that ballroom. And I think Good Leadership Breakfast has always been one of the best networking opportunities in town. And finally, who can't get excited about the bucket of goodwill? The idea of supporting our community, supporting charitable causes, it completely aligns with our Navigate Forward corporate values, and we love working with partners that feel this way as well. So Paul, everybody at the Good Leadership team, thanks for including us. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning and to hear from Brian.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Shadi, and all of our sponsors. We're very, very grateful. We're going to ask you, as you listen to the comments by Brian Cornell, if you have any questions, please just put them into the questions box. Kevin will be monitoring that box, and we'll get a chance to ask a couple of those questions. So now, this is a real pleasure for us to have this speaker join us at the Good Leadership Breakfast. You know, that the bullseye is iconic in Minneapolis, St. Paul, where I live and work, and for a number of reasons. I mean, I do a lot of traveling, and when you see a Target in any place you go, we all have a relationship with Target. It helps you feel like you're at home. This is a breakfast about leadership, not about merchandising or shopping. And what I'm really fascinated with is how in the world do people rise to the level of a Fortune 22 CEO? I'm really curious to find out a little bit about his journey. I'm also curious to find out what are some of the success habits that allow him to be so effective running an organization that's so as large as Target. So please join me in welcoming a diehard Bruce Springsteen fan. Please join me in welcoming Brian Cornell. Hi, Brian.
Paul, good morning. It's good to be with you. And it was great to see Ann this morning. So even virtually, Ann, I'm saying hello and sending you goodwill.
Yeah, thank you. I'm discovering that you and I have a lot of things in common. One of them is that we had early jobs mowing lawns and shoveling snow. I mean, that warmed my heart to know that we've both done that before. So will you just tell us a little bit about how you grew up and how did that shape who you are as a leader today?
Well, if I go all the way back, Paul, to growing up in Queens, New York, if you would have been introduced to me as a little kid, you probably wouldn't have projected Brian Cornell to be doing what he's doing today. You know, I did grow up under some challenging circumstances without a dad, but with lots of great support from my mom and grandparents who jumped in, teachers and coaches along the way. But I had a pretty challenging start to life. I learned early that the only place where the playing field was level for me was in a classroom, at work, or in sports. And I really embraced that early in life and recognized the importance of education and hard work. I did mow a lot of lawns, and I loved when it snowed in New York. I could be out there with a shovel, making a few dollars. And certainly sports was a great outlet for me. But I would have never imagined back then growing up that I'd be doing what I do today and have the privilege and honor of leading the Target team.
Obviously, this breakfast is about goodness, and we really believe goodness pays. Who are your most important role models growing up that sort of got this idea that goodness is the way you wanted to operate?
Well, certainly I've got to recognize my mom, who raised two boys on her own, and grandparents, and certainly my grandmother, who was really focused on education and giving back even after she had already raised 6 children. But I think about my journey, and the role that different teachers have played, coaches have played, people willing to give back and show that they cared. And it's probably had a profound impact on me and my willingness throughout my career to make sure I'm supporting others, I'm playing a mentorship role, I'm taking the time to give back. And it's probably the thing I enjoy most at this stage of my career is the ability to touch others and lean in and have those conversations when someone has questions about what do I do next and reaches some point in their career where they're looking for advice. So while I love what I do each and every day leading Target, I also really enjoy impacting others that I've met over the years or just looking for advice along the way.
Well, let's talk about Target. It's a massive organization, tens of thousands of team members that you have. And the only way to run a large organization is teams of teams. And so you obviously are a very talented team leader. What have you learned about your role as a team leader in an environment like Target?
Well, you talked about it, Paul. It's hard to run a close to $90 billion company without having amazing talent, great teams, and in our case, alignment around key principles. And I'll start with our alignment around the company purpose. And sitting here today, I think if you talk to any of our leaders, they would talk about the importance of purpose and certainly the role it's played throughout the pandemic. I mean, we wake up every day thinking about how we can help all of the families we serve each and every day discover that little bit of joy in everyday life. And throughout this pandemic, offering them those moments of joy. And whether it's just finding those household cleaning products they need, or that new gift or toy for their children, or something in their home that makes life a little easier, that's the role we've been playing. So I've recognized the importance of purpose, the importance of aligning around culture and cultural values. And clearly for us, a clear set of priorities that we've been focused on each and every day on behalf of the guests that we serve across America.
Well, I love the word joy. We use it a lot in our practice here. But I want to talk about the difference between joy and harmony when you talk about a team. So we believe that harmony on a team is the enemy of high performance. That instead, healthy tension is what really creates the momentum and the quest for great results. So can you talk to me a little bit about what are some of the healthy tensions that are ever present in the team at the top at Target?
Well, we do a lot of work through cross-functional teams. And for a company like ours, Paul, it's hard to accomplish anything in any one functional silo. We need our store teams, our merchants, our marketers, our supply chain teams, our finance teams. Our HR team plays an enormous role in how we navigate the landscape each and every day. So we get lots of teams around a round table and talk about initiatives and talk about problems we have to solve, but really try to find enterprise solutions. So while we want healthy tension, what I really want to make sure is all the voices are heard. And we're getting different perspectives, but that perspective should start with what's right for our team and what's right for the guests we serve. And that's really been a mantra we've put in place throughout the pandemic. As we thought about the challenges we were going to face back in February when all this started, we recognized that the first thing we had to do was make sure we took care of our team and made the right investments in their safety, their health and wellness each and every day.
Yeah, the idea of getting people to work together across difficult functions. I mean, you guys obviously have been doing it for a long time, but any little misstep in that cross-functional communication is really, really difficult. When you were on your journey, when did you realize that you could become a big company CEO?
I didn't start out thinking about being a CEO. In fact, I probably didn't even understand what a CEO was for many years. And I went to UCLA, as you know, and was really active, not only in sports there, but I started coaching football and really thought that I'd end up being a teacher and a coach. And then I got a little bit of advice around some of the challenges that come along with being a high school football coach. and decided to shift my focus to business. But I never expected that I'd achieve this kind of success and have the responsibility for running a Fortune 50 company. But along the way, as I progressed in my PepsiCo career, I gained more confidence. I got more of a global perspective. I started to really enjoy leading diverse teams in different parts of the world. And my confidence just continued to grow. But I was certainly never expecting to be sitting in this chair today. It's clearly the ultimate role for me, and one that I would have never imagined I'd have the privilege of serving in. But the last 7 years now at Target have been the highlight of my business career, and it'll certainly be something I remember for the rest of my life. And it's my only regret is I wish I would have been at Target 10 years earlier.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, a really fun job. Well, here's a subject that maybe isn't quite as fun. You have a Target store right in the neighborhood where George Floyd was killed. And my gosh, the spotlight was shining on the entire world in this neighborhood in South Minneapolis. It's only 7 miles from where I sit here right now. Obviously, Target has been a huge partner in the communities in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but also everywhere you have Target stores. This has been a fantastic year for Target as a retailer. How are you reinvesting back in these communities to help us, get better with all this?
Paul, I have to start by just reflecting on that moment, going back to May 25th in Minneapolis, seeing the murder of George Floyd. And for me, it was deeply personal. And I've been spending and have spent a lot of time with our Black officers and team members. They've shared their stories, and I've heard all the stories that now are being told each and every day about our team members who might be managing stores and get pulled over as they're going from one Target store to another. And they're pulled over only because they're Black. So when I saw the images of George Floyd, my first reaction was that could have been one of my Target team members. And watching what happened afterwards, and obviously the violence and the impact to our store on Lake Street, our first reaction was, one, let's make sure we're taking care of our teams and our teams locally, but then recognizing how important that store is to the local community. And that store has been there for decades. It's critically important to that neighborhood. So we immediately pivoted and said, all right, how do we make sure we put a plan together to rebuild that store and rebuild a store in a way that's even better than before, that recognizes that local community, that reflects the local community, but make sure we get that store open for the holiday season. So our teams did an amazing job of putting together a plan to rebuild that store, working with a local minority subcontractor who had teams working around the clock to bring that store back to life. But to me, it's a sign of the resilience of our organization. You started off talking about something that is really important to me right now. I worry every day about the resilience of our team. And as we move into the winter season, knowing that COVID's still here, the challenges that so many leaders have with children who are going to school right next to them in a spare bedroom, I worry about that. But I think the significance of how we approach rebuilding Lake Street was just a sign of just the resilience we built in our Target team. And going back to purpose, we rebuilt that store because of the families that we know we serve, and trying to bring that little joy back to them during difficult times. So that is a point in my life that I'll always remember. And I think it was a very important point in our history, and recognizing the role we play in so many communities across the country, because we had other stores that were damaged. And our team rallied, and they rallied for one reason, because they knew how important Target was to the families in those local neighborhoods. And it brings me a huge smile when I think about some of the stories that I've seen across the country, from Minneapolis to Philadelphia, where our teams rallied after stores were destroyed and brought them back to life in a matter of weeks, because they knew that local neighborhood, that local guest needed Target. And that's what makes me so proud about leading this organization.
Yeah, thank you, and us here too in this community for sure. The word joy also bridges to another topic that we talk about here at Good Leadership all the time, and that's the 7 F's. The 7 F's are faith, family, finances, fitness, friends, fun, and future. And as we talk about those, there's joy in many of those concepts. You and I have talked about this a little bit. How have you processed running a business out of your home or remotely through the 7 F's these days?
Well, Paul, I think they're all important. I think over the last few months, there's certain ones that really, for me, have been critically important. You got one F that stands for finance. And when we, again, started to put together our plans for continue to operate and provide essential services during the pandemic, the first thing we thought about is how do we support our team to make sure they can support our guests and provide those essential services. So you probably have heard me talk about the fact that we've invested over $1 billion in health and wellness and benefits for our team, in safety features, and that's made such a difference. I was actually in one of our distribution centers yesterday, just south of Savannah, Georgia, and interacting with our team members in that DC. Some of the stories I heard were really surprising. And in business, we talk a lot about unintended consequences. And usually it's a negative thing that happens. Well, yesterday I learned about an unintended consequence that was really, really positive. And team members in this local town in Georgia talking about how much those bonuses that we paid meant to them and the impact that made to that extended family group. So that investment in our team has been critically important. And I know it's made a huge difference. For me personally, the focus on family has become more important than ever. And I think during the pandemic, for many of us, again, one of the unintended benefits has been we've spent more time connecting with family. I probably spent more time with my wife than I have in almost our 40-year marriage because I'm not traveling the way I used to, and I'm working from home more often. So there's been a unique connection there. I've certainly recognized the importance of fitness and back to personal resilience and energy management, making sure that you're encouraging your teams, and I'm making sure that I build into my daily schedule, time to exercise and take care of myself so that I can bring my best to work each and every day. And certainly we're thinking about the future and what's next and how do we prepare for some of the uncertainties of 2021. I know we were supposed to be together back in May. I can't believe it's now December. But we know we're going to blink and we're going to be moving into the start of a new year. But we've got to be prepared for some of the uncertainty as we wait for that vaccine and wait for things to begin to normalize. But we don't know what that new normal is. So we're spending a lot of time talking to consumers and talking to our guests, talking to our team, trying to understand what is that future going to look like and how does it influence the way we serve our guests, we take care of our team, and the ways we work going forward in the future.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my team right now. Do you have a question that's come from our audience that you can ask Brian at this time?
Yeah, so there are a few questions that come in as we're going. Again, for anyone still on with us that wants to ask another question, please go ahead and enter that into the question area, and we can discuss that as well as we go forward. So one of the questions that came in, Brian, is you talked a lot about this year and kind of how have you gone through and taking your team through this past year. What is the biggest insight that you've gained about yourself as a leader during this year?
Well, I thought about that actually, Kevin, quite a bit. And I think we've all recognized that this has been an environment where none of us ever expected to be operating and leading companies during a pandemic. Certainly for me, recognizing that I've done a lot of this virtually, and I would have never imagined that I could lead a company virtually using Zoom and other techniques that we're using today. to connect with our organizations and our teams. But I have learned how effective we can be using technology and the important role that technology plays. But I've also learned just the importance of our team. And that's not new learning for me. But when I think about our success during the pandemic, the results we've delivered, the market share gains that we've collected, it all comes down to investments we've been making for years in our team. And everywhere I go, virtually every meeting that we hold, whether I'm in stores, in distribution centers, talking to our headquarters team, I think we all recognize that the investments we've been making for years in our team, and Target's had a long history as an academy company. I've, even before joining, recognized that Target was an organization that had been investing in great leadership and in goodness for years. You know, we're a company that since 1962 has given back 5% of our pre-tax profits, because we always recognized that if we could invest in our local communities and make those communities strong and healthy, it was going to benefit our business. But I've learned even more the importance of investing in team, investing in our communities, making sure that we are setting a great example. But I go back to, and I've learned the importance of purpose to really guide our organization throughout the pandemic, and just how important that's been.
You talked a little bit about the 7Fs and how you've seen those play out in your organization. But for you personally, the one question is around how you utilize those. So is there one of those, or is there someone or something that you rely on most heavily when you're in your darkest times, your biggest struggles as a leader and an individual?
You know, I'll go back to, the importance of family, the role my wife Martha plays to help me sort through some of the challenging times. My utilization of fitness as a way to manage my energy and how important energy management is. But again, I think they're all vitally important. I think during the pandemic, if there's one F call that's probably fallen off the page a little bit, it's our inability to connect with friends, which I think so many of us, as we think about 2021, connecting again with friends and with family that we haven't seen for months and months now, is going to be on everyone's priority list. But I think they're all important, and I think they're all critically important to great leaders. And I look forward to that point in 2021 where physically we have friends and family all together in a room. And while webcams and Zoom meetings and team meetings have certainly bridged some of the gap, it just will not make up for, I think, all of our desires to be together with friends and family. And the first gathering that we're going to hold, hopefully sometime early in 2021, when we're back together with those that we love and cherish.
Yeah, now that you say that, what I miss the most about the breakfast, the way we do it, is I miss the applause that happens when I introduce the speaker, and I miss the handshake on stage. So those days will come back. We will live to see them again, and it can't happen soon enough, as far as I'm concerned. The last question is a question that we've asked every speaker for many, many, many years, and that is that, what proof statements do you have? How do you know for sure that goodness pays for you as a leader?
Well, again, I look around at where we are today and the stories that I've heard from our teams. And I know, Paul, that while early in the year, I had some shareholders and analysts question the investments we were making in our team. Talking about $1 billion for a company like Target is a big investment. But the investments we've made in the safety of our team, the safety of our guests, the investments we made in benefits during the pandemic, I know those have paid back in a huge way. And it's because we thought about our teams first. We showed them that we cared, and that care has delivered amazing benefits for our guests, who in turn has certainly benefited the Target organization. But that giving back, recognizing the importance of investing in our team, investing in the safety of our team and our guests, I think that's been, to me, the hallmark of 2020 for the Target organization. And I think it's going to guide us going forward for years, if not decades to come.
Thank you, and very, very well said. Now it's my pleasure to introduce another one of our partners, Julie McDonough from Bremer Bank. Bremer's been a partner for years in helping us spread the goodness in the community. Hi, Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good. Well, thank you. Brian, thank you so much. Your comments about aligning around the purpose, I think really resonated with me. And it's always important, but so critically important in a year like this. And the other thing is, just as you talk about your employees and their families and the communities, it is so clear how much you truly care about that. And that's really cool as a leader. So on behalf of Bremer Bank, as a thank you for your time, this morning we are donating $500 to the Bucket of Goodwill, which will go to Feeding America.
Well, thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm grateful this morning just for the immense amount of teamwork it took to pull this off. My next question related to leadership, it goes back to what you and I talked about, Brian, around the healthy tension. And we have a poll question coming next here, Kevin, if you can go to that slide. I'm curious to just survey everyone who's out here. We've got many people online here today. You're all a part of teams. Does your team culture allow the kind of healthy tension that we talked about in our conversation? Kevin, will you take this?
As we can see here, Paul, overwhelmingly people in the audience, they're saying yes, they are embracing the healthy tension as a strategy for great results, which is good to see this morning.
Yeah, and also there's a pretty sizable chunk, 30% would be pandemic, of people who don't understand this particular concept. And so one of the things I'd like to do is to make a connection between healthy tension and the 7Fs. So healthy tension is much easier when people care about each other, both personally and professionally. And the best way we have seen to help keep that condition alive is for leaders to be conversationally competent about being able to coach people and ask, how is it really going in your life? And the 7Fs wheel itself is one of those discussion tools that's in the resilience toolkit that can really make a big difference. If you can have a conversation about faith, family, finances, fitness, friends, fun, and future, you will be a caring individual in someone's life who can really help them see what's possible in their leadership, both personally and professionally. So the last poll we have relates to this 7Fs. I'm curious to find out how comfortable people in this audience feel. Go ahead, Kevin.
And it looks like many are saying yes, but a fairly significant number say haven't considered using the 7Fs in my coaching at work yet.
Well, based on the conversation we've had today, I'm hoping that we can help the group that hasn't considered it, and even the people who know don't feel comfortable, that we can help pique your interest. And perhaps the resilience toolkit that we're offering can help there. The reason why we think this is so important is we talked earlier about how many people are really worried about the resilience of their teams. And so the 7Fs is a really good way to help that. This is a reminder that it's still a possibility for you to go to goodleadership.com/bucket of goodwill, or BOGW, and make a contribution to the Feeding America to help accelerate that lead gift that was given by Mark Bergman. As I close my comments today, I just want to go back to this central idea. The world needs us to be good leaders who radiate goodness, and it needs us to do that today. As Brian talked about, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to role model a well-rounded 7Fs lifestyle that helps the people who report to us understand that we believe that's important. We also have to take time to really coach our teams and acknowledge the difficulties and keep people positive and focused on what's possible in our leadership. And then I'm just going to quote one of my mentors, Richard Leider, here and say, the world also needs us to give and give and give. Though for those of us who have things to give, it feels wonderful, and we also need to know deep down inside how much people really need our generosity this time of year. So thank you very much. We're so grateful that you joined the Good Leadership Breakfast. We appreciate it. Back to you, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Brian, for your uplifting, encouraging message as well. As always, our partner Lockton will be creating a research summary from the research we did today during the webinar. So if you'd like to receive a copy of that summary or portions of the slides or tools that were referenced throughout the day, please email us at info@goodleadership.com and just request the materials from the Brian Cornell breakfast presentation. Next week, we will be sending out an email with a link to a rebroadcast of today's session. And so please help us in spreading goodness by sharing that link with those who you believe would be encouraged by the message, or because they are good leaders, are becoming good leaders in your eyes. So thank you again for joining us, and make it a great day.